Look, I'm going to say something to you right now that might make you want to click off this video. In fact, if I do my job right, it probably should make you want to click off. Because the part of you that clicks off is the exact same part of you that has kept you in the same loop for the last 3, 5, maybe 10 years. Here's the truth that nobody in the self-help industry wants to tell you because it doesn't sell courses and it doesn't make you feel good. You are not stuck because you are broken. You are not stuck because you lack motivation. You aren't even stuck because of your trauma, though that plays a massive role. You are stuck because a part of you is addicted to it. I know, that sounds harsh. It sounds like I'm blaming you. It sounds like I'm saying you want to be miserable or broke or lonely or overweight. And consciously, of course you don't. Consciously, you're fighting for your life. Consciously, you're buying the books, you're making the vision boards, you're setting the alarms. I know you are. I see the effort. But if we look at the results, nothing changes. Or it changes for 3 weeks and then you snap back like a rubber band. And that snapback, that is where the addiction lives. So, let's take a breath here. I want to be very clear about something before we go deeper into the psychology of this. When I say you're addicted, I'm not using that word as a metaphor. I'm talking about neurochemistry. I'm talking about the biological imperative of your nervous system. See, we have this misconception that the brain's primary job is to make us happy. We think our brain wants us to be rich, loved, and successful. It doesn't. Your brain's #1 job, its only real job, is to keep you alive. And to the primitive survivalist part of your brain, alive equals predictable. This is the kicker. This is where it gets messy. To your nervous system, a familiar hell is safer than an unfamiliar heaven. Let that sink in. If you have spent the last decade in a state of financial anxiety, waking up with that tight chest, checking the bank account with one eye open, doing the math in your head at the grocery store, your brain has mapped that state as home. It has mapped that level of cortisol, that specific frequency of stress, as your baseline for survival. You have survived every day of being broke up until now. So the brain says, okay, this stress is safe. I know how to navigate this. I know who I am here. Now, imagine you suddenly get a windfall. You get a promotion. Things start going really, really well. You'd think you'd be happy, right? But watch what happens. You start feeling restless. You start feeling weird. It's quiet. It's too quiet. The cortisol drops and your nervous system goes, whoa, wait a minute. Where's the threat? Where's the struggle? I don't recognize this environment. And because the brain interprets the unknown as a threat to survival, peace actually feels like danger to a traumatized nervous system. So what do? You don't even know you're doing it. You pick a fight with your partner. You overspend on something stupid. You procrastinate on a deadline until the pressure builds back up to that familiar high stress level. And then, relief. You're back in the struggle. You're back in the chaos. And even though your conscious mind is screaming, why do I keep doing this? Your subconscious mind is finally relaxing. It says, okay, we're back. I know how to handle this. I know this pain. You are addicted to the chemical cocktail of your own struggle. We need to talk about identity, folks, because this goes beyond just chemistry. It goes into the story you tell yourself about who you are. Identity is the strongest force in the human personality. We will do almost anything to remain consistent with who we believe we are. And for a lot of us, our identity is bonded to our suffering. Think about how you talk to your friends. Think about the internal monologue. I'm just not good with money. I always attract crazy people. I'm a procrastinator. I'm the black sheep. When you repeat these things, you aren't just describing a situation, you are affirming a role. You are building a container. And the ego, that protective construct of self, it loves a container. It loves boundaries. Even if the container is a prison cell, at least it has walls. At least you know where the edges are. If you were to suddenly become completely free, if the money was easy, if the love was secure, if the body was healthy, who would you be? That's the terrifying question. Who would you be without your problems? For many of you, the problem gives you purpose. The struggle gives you a narrative. It makes you the underdog. It makes you the victim. It makes you the martyr. And look, I'm saying this with love, but there is a massive payoff in being the martyr. You get to be right. You get to be misunderstood. You get to say, look how hard I'm trying, and the world is just against me. If you succeed, you lose that story. You lose the excuse. You become responsible for your own happiness. And that is heavy. Freedom is incredibly heavy. It's lighter than the chains you're wearing, but it requires a strength you haven't built yet because you've been using all your energy just to hold up the chains. This is why we see people self-sabotage right at the moment of breakthrough. You know this feeling. You're on a diet, you've lost 10 pounds, you feel great, and then you eat an entire pizza. Why? Because you were approaching the upper limit. That's a term from Gay Hendricks, and it's brilliant. We all have an internal thermostat for how much love, success, and creativity we allow ourselves to enjoy. When you exceed your thermostat setting, your internal alarms go off. You are feeling too good. You are venturing into territory that doesn't match your identity. So you do something to bring yourself back down. You create a crisis. You get sick. You pick a fight. You lose your keys. Anything to lower the vibration back to where you feel safe. You are regulating yourself back to the familiar. And the wildest part? We often disguise this addiction to stuckness as self-improvement. Yeah, let's go there. How many of you are professional fixers of yourselves? You are constantly reading the books, watching videos like this, going to therapy, journaling. You treat yourself like a broken car that is constantly in the shop. But here's the catch. As long as you are fixing yourself, you are affirming that you are broken. The act of trying to heal can become the new addiction. It becomes a way of avoiding actually living. Because as long as I'm working on my issues, I don't have to put myself out there. I don't have to launch the business yet because I still have this money block I need to clear. I don't have to date yet because I'm still healing my inner child. It's a stalling tactic. It's a sophisticated, intellectualized way of staying exactly where you are. You feel productive because you're consuming content about change, but you aren't changing. You're just becoming a very well-educated inmate in your own prison. Quick pause here. If this is resonating, if you feel a little called out but in a good way, do me a favor. Like the video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who feels stuck. It really helps the channel grow, and it helps me get this message to the people who need to hear it. Okay, let's get back to it. So, we have this biological addiction to the chemicals of stress. We have this identity attachment to the story of struggle. And we have the trap of self-help that keeps us in fixing mode rather than being mode. How does this show up in the real world? Let's look at relationships. This is a big one. If you grew up in a chaotic home, maybe unpredictable parents, maybe shouting, maybe emotional distance, your nervous system learned that love equals anxiety. You learned that you have to earn love or chase love or walk on eggshells to keep love. So you meet someone secure. You meet someone kind, someone who calls when they say they will, someone who doesn't play games. And what do you feel? Bored. You feel no spark. You say there's no chemistry. Listen to me. That lack of chemistry, that's just a lack of trauma activation. That's peace. But because you are addicted to the cycle of anxiety and relief, peace feels flat. So you dump the secure person and you go find someone who ignores you. Immediately, the anxiety spikes, the chase begins, the chemicals flood your system, and you tell your friends, I just have such a connection with him. No, you don't. You have a connection with your pattern. You have a connection with the familiar feeling of abandonment. You are reenacting the old wound, hoping for a different ending, but you're choosing the same cast of characters. Same with money. If your identity is I'm a person who scrapes by, then having money in the bank creates cognitive dissonance. It doesn't match the picture. You will unconsciously find a way to get rid of it. The car will break down, you'll lend it to a friend who won't pay you back, you'll buy something you don't need. And once the account is back to zero or back to the red, you'll feel that familiar panic. And beneath the panic, a weird sense of rightness. See? I knew it. Money always slips through my fingers. You're proving yourself right. So, the million-dollar question. How do we break this? If the brain wants safety, and safety is the past, how do we ever move into a new future? Here is where most people get it wrong. They try to use willpower. They try to force the change. They scream at themselves in the mirror. They try to go from 0 to 100 overnight. And it fails. It fails because you are triggering the nervous system's threat response. If you try to change too fast, your subconscious views it as a death threat to the identity. It will fight back with procrastination, fatigue, illness, and anxiety. The way out isn't war. The way out is safety. You have to make the new reality safer than the old reality. And you don't do that by fighting the old pattern. You do it by introducing the new pattern in tiny, digestible doses. We call this titration. You have to teach your nervous system that it is safe to feel good, and you have to do it slowly. When something good happens, let's say you have a great interaction, or you find $20, or you just have a moment of quiet. Notice the urge to sabotage. Notice the urge to worry about something else. Stop. Just pause. Can you tolerate feeling good for 10 seconds? I'm serious. Can you just sit with the sensation of things being okay without looking for the other shoe to drop? It will feel uncomfortable. It will feel like you're letting your guard down. Your brain will scream, "Watch out, if you relax, you'll get hurt." But you just breathe through it. You say to your nervous system, I am safe. It is safe to have money. It is safe to be loved. It is safe to be bored. You are literally rewiring the baseline. You are stretching the window of tolerance. And look, if you want a grounded way to reprogram the subconscious without forcing anything or fighting yourself, I've got a free ebook called The Magic of Affirmations. It's in the description. It's not about magical thinking. It's about language patterns that actually bypass the ego's defenses. Check that out if you want. But the work, the real work, is in the embodiment. You have to understand that trying reinforces the stuckness. When you are trying to be confident, you are broadcasting the signal, I am lacking confidence. Instead of trying, practice being. This sounds abstract, so let's ground it. If you weren't addicted to the struggle, what would you be doing right now? Not in a year, right now. How would you sit in your chair? How would you breathe? The version of you that isn't stuck, the version of you that is successful, loved, healthy, that version has a different physiological state. That version isn't tight in the shoulders. That version isn't scanning the room for threats. You have to reverse engineer it. You don't wait for the success to come so you can relax. You relax. You find safety in the present moment. You detach from the addiction to the chaos, and then the reality shifts to match your state. It's about becoming boring. Yeah, I said it. You need to be okay with your life being a little boring. Drama is exciting. Chaos is stimulating. Highs and lows are a rush. Stability? Stability is kind of boring. Peace is quiet. You have to detox from the dopamine hits of your own disasters. You have to wake up and decide that you are no longer available for the drama. And when the drama doesn't show up and you feel that itch, that emptiness, you don't fill it with problems. You fill it with creativity. You fill it with presence. You fill it with gratitude. This is the hardest thing you will ever do. It is much easier to be a victim. It is much easier to say, "I can't catch a break." It is much easier to blame the economy or your parents or your ex. And valid, those things might be true. The economy might suck. Your parents might have failed you. But holding on to that narrative is your way of staying safe in the known. Taking responsibility for your own emotional state, regardless of external circumstances, that is terrifying. Because if you take responsibility and you still don't move, you have no one to blame. But here is the good news. The really good news. Since you built this cage, you can dismantle it. You aren't fighting an external enemy. You aren't fighting God. You are fighting your own protective mechanisms. And since they are yours, they will listen to you. But they won't listen to force. They will listen to safety. Treat your subconscious like a scared child. You don't scream at a scared child to stop crying. You don't drag a scared child into the dark. You hold their hand. You say, "I know this is new. I know this is scary. But look, nothing bad is happening. We are okay. We can take one step." And then you take the step. And then you freak out a little. You retreat. That's okay. You don't beat yourself up for the retreat. You just notice it. Ah, there's the addiction again. There's the safety mechanism. And you gently guide yourself back, over and over again. This isn't a one-time fix. This is a lifestyle. It's a daily practice of choosing the unfamiliar freedom over the familiar pain. And eventually, something shifts. Eventually, the peace becomes the new baseline. The success becomes the new normal. The healthy relationship becomes the new home. And one day, you'll look back at the chaos you used to live in, and it won't feel like home anymore. It will just look like a place you used to visit. You have to be willing to let the old version of you die. That's what this is really about. We are mourning the loss of who we were, even if who we were was miserable. We have an allegiance to our suffering. Break that allegiance. Pledge allegiance to your potential instead. Pledge allegiance to the unknown. It's scary. I know. I've been there. I'm still there some days. But on the other side of that fear is the life you claim you want. So stop trying to fix it. Stop fighting it. Just stop needing the pain to know you're alive. You're alive. You're here. And you are safe to grow. All right, folks, just remember, if your life hasn't changed, it's not because you're incapable. It's because some part of you still feels safer in the familiar. And the moment safety shifts, everything shifts. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next one.